I don't think the fight should be how to ensure that your side hustle isn't taken over by AI, but it's really how can we use AI as our partner, right? How can we build side hustles with AI? Because it actually excites me to see that there's tools like Lovable and Replit that you can play around with building an app, build a website that test out different ideas and see what works, right? So I think that would be the key framing is just really thinking about how we can leverage AI to, even just test things out and see what side hustle would take off.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unmeeting Moments, the podcast exploring the journey to finding and owning your voice. I'm your host, Ehis, and today I am joined by Jennifer Aikoroje. So, Jennifer is a CPA, the finance program manager at Microsoft, and she hosts a podcast called Inside Your Finance. So, it's a podcast creating honest conversations about money for everyday people like us. She also shares a lot of personal finance tips on LinkedIn as well as on her YouTube channel. So Jennifer has lived in a lot of countries, Nigeria, Canada, the UK, and now in the US. So today we're going to talk about building career insurance in the age of AI. Because right now you hear this company is doing layoffs, that company is doing layoffs, and everybody's saying it's because of AI. So a lot of people are worried, like, is my job safe or what can I do to ensure I keep having a job that can pay the bills? But today we're going to talk about how can you protect yourself financially and professionally, and how can you build options really before you actually need them. So Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ehis. Thanks for having me. I've watched a few of your episodes and I'm just like, you're definitely doing the Lord's work, just
I
putting out that information.
appreciate it. Thank you. Before we go into the main topic, I want to start with your background and your story. So, how was growing up for you like, and how did that shape your relationship with money?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Nigeria. So I spent the first 13 years of my life living in Nigeria. And then my parents, moved us over to Canada. And, that's kind of where I grew up and spent most of my adult years. But growing up in Nigeria, one thing I would say that was really key in shaping my personal relationship with money is my dad. My dad has always been someone who has been very financially conscious. And, I know growing up, we didn't like it because when you see your friend like going on multiple trips and you want to join them or, you can't just spend money because my dad is going to ask you like, okay, what are you spending the money on? Growing up, my mom as well on the other side, who also wasn't a really big spender, but more of a value-based spender. So she really liked to spend money where it matters, right? So put money into valuable item versus just spending it frivolously. So I think the marrying of those two personalities really shaped how I see money today, where there's a really strong balance between, making sure that even as I spend money, that I'm spending on things that matter to me and just focusing more on value-based spending. But even more importantly as well, one thing I really learned from my dad was the importance of putting money away, saving and investing and really just saving for the future. And I've seen that sort of work in his life, over time with job losses and his ability to, still be able to take care of the family and pick back up. So I would say just watching my parents and seeing how they interacted with money really significantly shaped the way I see money today.
So the lessons you learned from your dad about like saving and being more financially conscious, was that like an active lesson? Did he like just actively say, hey, here's why we're making such decisions? Or you just kind of learned by observing him? Or was it more formal like, hey, no, we don't just spend, we have a goal and we save towards the goal and we, at the end of the day, when we have enough money, we buy? Or was it just more like you just learned by observation?
Yeah, I was mostly learning by observation. I was pretty young, so we didn't have like a formal education. There was never hey, this is why we spend money like this. It was more just, and honestly, it wasn't until later as I got older that I now understood why it was important to live in a certain way that my dad or my parent did, right? But it was honestly just by observing and seeing how, because my dad put money aside when a job loss came, there was no panic. He was able to, continue to go as business as usual, right? So there wasn't, I mean, obviously, as I got older, I started to ask him questions and then we started to have more of a conversation about it. But for the foundational education that I got, it was just by watching and seeing the benefit of putting money away.
I guess if there are any parents out there, we do a lot of stuff. I have two little kids. There's a lot of stuff that you don't know, you don't pay attention to. But your kids are always watching. Your kids are always
Oh,
observing. So instead of teaching those things like, hey, sit down. So today we're going to talk about savings or personal emergency funds. But I think that oftentimes the best type of education is actually seeing the concept in action
absolutely. And I
and
think
watching it.
also in giving them practice. Because
Yeah.
even as I was just speaking, I remember growing up in Nigeria, family, friends would give you like 500 naira here, 1,000 naira there. And sometimes my dad would be like, give me that money. I'm going to put it away for you.
Yeah.
We never saw it. Now that I think about it, I don't know where all that money was. But
That's
I
funny.
think that even just on a more serious note, too, that like, if you teach your kids, like start with giving them like an allowance, right? And having them have that agency. Like if they want to buy something, it's like, okay, did you put the money away for you to be able to afford that? Or did you spend all your allowance money? I think giving them some of those practical lessons helps, right? Other than them just watching you so that they can really see the value of either putting money away. Because I think as kids, sometimes you want a toy and it just shows up. You don't
Yeah.
really know where it came from.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you have a bank account and, your parents have given you hundreds of dollars saved up or whatever, and you know that, okay, if I put this money away, I will be able to afford X, Y, Z. And if I can't afford it, right? So I think that kind of helps. Just giving them that practical lesson also helps with imbibing the skills in them.
As you described that, I'm in the finance world. I consider myself a finance professional, but I think I'm falling short. I don't think I'm doing this because I think there's a point where we try to instill some of this in our daughter. So when she wants something extra, like a new toy, we'll be like, okay, we'll give her a list of chores. Like you can choose from doing A, B, C, D. If you do it, and then you earn the money to go, then we go to the store and buy this stuff for you. But I feel like we just stopped doing it. So now that you mentioned it, I'm like, you know what? That's a good idea. I think we should go back to that because they don't. It's at least the concept of like the value that is something you need to give to get something.
Absolutely.
One example, the one we actually had her work for, it was she was playing with it. I think she was jumping on the couch with the guitar or something. We said, "Don't do that," and she did it, and it broke.
Oh,
And so she's like, she wants a new guitar. I'm like, okay, you want a new guitar? You have to do A, B, C, or D to get a new one. And she did it. But actually, she did it, and we're excited. It's like, okay, we actually give her the cash. And so I give her, okay, this is cash. We're gonna put you in the car. We're gonna go to the store and buy the guitar. And then unfortunately, we got to this store. They didn't have the same exact one.
oh, and
They didn't have the same exact guitar that she was trying to replace. So I think what did she buy? She bought some other like musical
yeah.
instrument, but it was a good
What?
lesson. I think it's something.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we should definitely go back to. So when it comes to personal finance, I sort of think about being an immigrant. It's slightly different from maybe someone who's not an immigrant, as specifically as it relates to like risk tolerance. If I think about my own journey, when I came here, I came on a student visa, and so for me, it was always about like I need stability to be able to stay in the country, kind of thing. Like that was the critical thing. So when it comes to like job, I was also making sure I applied to jobs that can sponsor a visa. That's like this was the priority. And it wasn't so much that, okay, I have this overall big financial goal. I need to work a certain kind of job and I need to like save a certain kind of money to be able to buy a home or buy a car or whatever. It was just that I just needed a job that could sponsor my visa. Tend to us. But just broadly speaking, though, for immigrants in general and the relationship with risks, I do feel like our risk, as I said, is different because some of the things that we think through in making career decisions and money decisions, or like you have a family at home, maybe someone is sick at home. So now you got to send money home. Sometimes you were like, even for me for a while, I was like the only person in your family who's like helps out with stuff. So I'm not just like, saving for me. I have to think about how much I'm going to send to A, B, this person, that person to help them with your stuff. So I guess as you think about some of those tips that you give for personal finance, how is that different from an
Yeah.
immigrant's perspective? Like, what's different about personal finance for someone who's an immigrant?
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on. We call it the black tax as well, right? Where you have to you have to always account for giving back. And I think it's a beautiful thing because as Africans and as other immigrants too, we're very communal in our thinking, right? But I think where we sometimes miss it is not including that in our financial planning, right? I personally have someone, even myself, I've had that experience of having to give back to, cousins and extended family that are still back home in Nigeria. But there's a budget for that. There's a line item on my budget for giving back, right? And I know for me, it's probably a lot simpler because I don't have major family to support. But I think that's one of the key things. And that's something that would be different from a non-immigrant is we can't just focus only on saving for retirement or putting money away for big major investments. We have to also consider putting money aside for people back home that we still support, right? But even on taking risks, I think education is also important, right? Educating immigrants about the benefit of debt options that are out there. A lot of people do not realize how much you can achieve by taking on debt, good debt, not bad debt, but leveraging and taking opportunities of those debt options that you have available to you, right? So I think there's an education piece that's definitely missing for us as immigrants. And that's part of what I do, even in some of my podcast episodes, is also bringing people who are also immigrants that have been able to get that education on their own and they can come and share the story and share their journey of how it's been beneficial to them. But I think, yeah, it's definitely something that we all struggle with, right? We can't just think about ourselves when we're making all these financial moves. My mom is one person she's like the first child and she has like 7 younger siblings, right? And then she has a mom. So I see it even firsthand. I see how much it really sometimes can be draining, right? Being the only person that your extended family had to rely on. But one thing that I know that has helped is just your ability to have it as a budget line item, like put aside X amount of money that you're allocating just specifically for that need every month. So that if someone says, a roof is broken or someone broke their leg, you can go into that account and see what's in there and that's what you can spend, right? But I think it's definitely, I understand that it's definitely it's a real thing and it's something that we definitely have to have at the back of our mind. But I'll say that's what would be different. It's really just pushing that education to immigrants.
I like the idea of making a line item in your budget because I remember so we used to not do that, and then we did. When you don't have this as your line budget, think like every instance where someone reaches out to ask you, it's like a one-off. Then I gotta decide, like, okay, what do I really want to have this person? There's just a lot of like it becomes one-off. But I think once I had a budget, like this is my budget for giving in general, both people here, people in Nigeria, wherever,
Exactly.
for the month. So once I hit that, I don't feel bad just telling you no. Like it's not like a big decision, like, oh, can I help? It makes it very simple. Are we within the budget? So my wife just kind of how we do it. Okay, someone comes and asks, like, okay, can we do it? Can we afford it? Are we within the budget? Yes, it's within the budget. Okay, fine, we do it. When we hit the budget, if you come to us like, okay, are we? No, we're not. Then that's it. It's a simple decision. Then end the story. We can.
And I think that's what causes a lot of stress, right? I understand it's also quite tricky because
Yeah.
saying no sometimes really does suck. But I think it's a muscle. The more you do it, the better you get at it, right? Like if your budget every month is $500 for giving back, if that bucket is empty, it's empty. You have to say no and wait till the next month. I had a guest who said that she has parents who are older that she supports and she basically puts them on payroll. So there is an option. I know at Microsoft, we have this where you can split out your paycheck in different accounts. She
Yeah, a
has
lot
a
of companies do.
different
Yeah.
account that she's allocated for that purpose, right? So
Yeah.
if the money finishes this month, you have to wait till the next month. So
I like
there's
that.
no, oh, it's urgent, it's urgent. It's like, yep, wait till the next month and you get it.
I feel like having that framework of like this is the amount I set aside, and then just from my own mind and my own mentor, it's easier to say no, and I have a good reason why I'm saying no. You know what I mean? As opposed to like feeling bad about it or saying
Yeah,
no.
exactly.
So moving on to the main topic today, sort of career insurance. I think for me or a lot of people, I'm sure when you hear like, oh, how do you have career insurance, you can think about like side hustle. And in a way, AI makes it very easy to do different things. But I also think like even like website building, like you saw before, building a website used to be like side hustle for some people. If you're a developer, you can like build a website for people, even like kids in college and you get paid for it and stuff. But I'm like, But now AI is also taking the value away from those things. Like those things that used to be side hustles are no longer side hustles because of me and you can do it now. So I don't need to pay you to do those things. So how do you think about that for somebody in terms of developing what the appropriate type of things they should start doing and start thinking about doing outside of 9 to 5? Is it because people in my age, or at least my friend group, the big thing used to be real estate. It's very big. Like they're all trying to get some rental property. I have a couple of friends who like, oh, they actually got their license, like the real estate license and stuff. Like every now and then, if you have time, maybe you could do some work to help sell a home and stuff and get some money like that. For now, like people are trying to use like AI to do like to do all the selling process from start to finish of their home. Kind of stuff.
Really?
The situations that you have an agent, say you're selling your home, right? I think part of the value your agent can give you is like, okay, like how do you show the house? Like how do you arrange the house to sell it? What kind of photos to take? How to market the house, essentially, right? I saw some clip on CBS on the news station about this guy who's claimed he's AI from start to finish. He didn't use like a real estate agent to sell the house. So in terms of making decisions like, oh, what kind of photos should I put? How should I put a description? What should I say? What should I list it? How much should I list it at? Like all the decisions where a real estate agent will be your advisor, tell you how to do those things and use AI. Now you can use AI to do those type of things. So
Yeah.
I'm like, in a way, it's okay. Those things that you could do before that could potentially be extra income. Now, like if everybody can do those things now, then those things are not as valued. So I guess the question though is, how does someone even think about that framework of what types of things they even start thinking about engaging? Like, should I do something completely different from what I do for work? Should I do something that's close where my skills can translate, or should I have a TikTok account and just start being an influencer? Like, what? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean that's $1 million question, right? Everyone, yeah, everyone's thinking about it. Even I'm thinking about it myself. But I think what's interesting is if we think about the kind of task that AI is taking over, and I'll step back a little bit because even in my job right now, like I'm sure similar to you, a lot of the big tech companies, they've embedded your use of AI in your performance review, right? So we are being asked to learn the tool, right?
Hmm.
And figure out ways to basically train these tools to take over some of the administrative tasks. Like right now, I don't do a lot of the admin tasks, right? Because I run projects at work. AI is the one, taking all the meeting notes, summarizing the meeting notes, putting together status reports and all those updates. So when I think about that from that perspective, right, what kind of side hustles would AI take over? If you think about those repetitive tasks, things that don't necessarily require too much subjectivity, right? So taking a note, building a website, things that are kind of repetitive that you can just train an AI to do and it will take it and do it for you, right?
Yeah.
Those kind of side hustles might not survive in this age of AI. But where I think the side hustles that I think might survive, I'm actually surprised to hear real estate is already being, impacted because I would think that would be one of them. Things that require trust,
Mm.
right? Because I can't necessarily trust an AI model because, of course, they're still not 100% foolproof, right? They still make mistakes. So if you think about those kind of side hustles that require trust, like coaching, for example, you can't really, yeah, you can use Claude to coach you on interview prep and all of that, but there's some questions that you might have that kind of unique to you as a person and to that experience, that you need a human being who has that experience and has that lived experience to guide you through. It's not just give me a checklist on how to pass this interview, right? It's someone who's actually been there and who's actually lived that experience, that has that skill that you can trust, right? That would stand the test of this tool, this AI tool. So I think the way I'm personally thinking about it is I'm thinking about side hustles that and I'm thinking about skills that I have that are from my own personal experience, right? Finance is big for me because when I talk about finance, I'm not just talking about theory. It's things that I've done, things that I've experienced, investing in the stock market, for example. I spent years investing, I've made mistakes, so I can use those lived experiences to be able to build trust with my audience and with people that I help with financial coaching. So I think your question is, as people are thinking about what side hustles to get into, think about your skills. Like, what do people come to you? You have friends who come to you for the same thing? Are you someone who's good at planning, or are you someone who's good with financial investments and all those things, right? What is that thing that people often come to you for answers? Then you can turn that, because they come to you because they trust you. They trust your experience. They trust your opinion. So if you think about those things, how can you then leverage that experience that you have to build an income? And I think, even regardless of whether it's a side hustle that is built on trust or whatever, we have to know how to use the tools. We have to learn how to leverage AI to help with our businesses and our side hustles, right? I don't think the fight should be how to, you know, ensure that your side hustle isn't taken over by AI, but it's really how can we use AI as our partner, right? How can we build side hustles with AI? Because it actually excites me to see that there's tools like Lovable and Replit that you can play around with building an app, build a website that test out different ideas and see what works, right? So I think that would be the key framing, is just really thinking about how we can leverage AI to, even just test things out and see what side hustle would take off.
Now, you're thinking about trust or the things that require trust. So I'm thinking about different career decisions or career paths or career ideas. I like use one of the LMs. Like, okay, I'm thinking about this. So we go back and forth. But still, I still do have an executive coach that I actually pay, and I talk to him monthly. I do feel like there's still a place, definitely, for like things like coaching, to ask people who you trust their judgment. So they've done this, they've helped people before.
Absolutely.
Um,
And yeah, and I'll use, like, again, the real estate one is still quite shocking to me, because I remember when I was buying a property a few years ago, my real estate agent, so there's a property I really wanted, I liked it, and I wanted to pull the plug. And then he's like, "Hey, no, I know this so he went and did some like some research on the builders, and said that he found that 10 years ago they had a lot of lawsuits because they had done some really shady buildings and they had a lot of issues. And they rebranded. So they changed their name. I don't know if AI could have caught that, but
well, that's
that's the
interesting.
trust. Is like having a, let's say, agent who went above and beyond, and he's like, I'm gonna go and really do some research. And because he also had the experience, because he's been a real estate agent for over 20 years, so he's like, this looks fishy, right? So to me, I think that's the trust part, right? That we can't really take away, at least not now, that trust and that lived experience.
That's a good point. I think the real estate example, I think that's just one example. That's probably like the exception. 3 years ago, because we lived in San Francisco at the time when we were looking to buy in Georgia. And so we were not going to come visit until we had a short list of places we're really serious about. But our real estate agent was the one who was going to do the visits, and then she would do like a FaceTime to look at the place and such. And I remember, at least on paper, there was one home we really, really liked on paper. I was dying for this home. Like, it looked so beautiful on paper. And she was
Yeah.
like, no, there's this road, Windy Hill Road. Like, the house is right on the highway, and it's tough to come out. You don't want to be around the area. I didn't know anything about the neighborhood area. Just the home itself just seemed very beautiful. Now I passed that home on my way to work, and every time I'm so glad we didn't end up in that home. Because the neighborhood is just not the kind of neighborhood we want to live in. But the home itself is so beautiful. But if you go to the neighborhood, it's just a different story. So even within the real estate industry, I do feel like it's still a place for like those type of underground knowledge, underground experience that AI may not be able to capture. In terms of side hustle, what's the role of, so you have a podcast, obviously I have a podcast. We both have YouTube channels. We both share thoughts on LinkedIn and such. So
Yeah.
what's the role of personal brand in side hustle?
I mean, I think it's everything. I think your personal brand is everything, because that's really how you establish yourself as the thought leader or the go-to person for whatever space you've chosen, right? Like for you, I know that you do podcasts on finance related careers as well as just 9 to 5 and like what we're doing right now, right? So you would be the go-to person if I was looking for an idea on the next finance career I should choose, right? For me, I've really focused mostly on personal finance, right? So I think that's really the bread and butter of having a side hustle, is start to figure out something that you want to be known for. And I think it's really important to niche down, right? What is that thing that anyone can put their bet on? Like if you want to learn about this, that's what this person is, right? So I think that personal branding is 100% important. You can't, I mean, maybe you can, but gone are the days where you could just start a side hustle without having an online presence. Now it's the key thing. You have to view that personal brand You have to put yourself out there, get over the cringe, because especially if you already have a 9 to 5, it's like, oh my gosh, your personal brand is really, it's your marketing. That's your marketing tool. It's how you market yourself as the thought leader in that space that you've chosen.
Yeah, LinkedIn is an interesting one, obviously, because having your work colleague and sometimes maybe your manager or your boss, your senior VP might be on it, and sometimes maybe prospective employers. So,
Yeah.
but you're right. I think it's just starting it. Once you start it, it's less cringy. You kind of find your groove. You kind of know the things you like enjoy talking about, things you enjoy writing about. You know what works, what resonates, what doesn't. But you don't know if you don't try it. You try different things, different formats. Like I feel like I can tell. Before I make it a post, I know how it's gonna. Not all the time, but most times I know how it's gonna perform. I know
Yeah.
what's gonna be get a lot of engagement, which is usually like resources. When I share like resources, those tend to go out. But I enjoy sharing or reflecting publicly about like different things, whether it's like on the personal front, or kids, or parenting, or at work, whatever. I know that that's not as appealing as here are the 10 top business school with full scholarship, right? That's a different appeal.
Very interesting, because for me, it's actually almost the opposite.
Oh,
Like,
really?
I find that when I share about my personal
Yeah.
finance story, it
Yeah.
gets a lot more engagement than when I just share like, oh, here are top 5 ETFs that you should look at, right? Like, I
Oh,
think maybe
interesting.
it's different for
Yeah, yeah.
our spaces, because I think maybe people, when it comes to personal finance, people really
Fine.
want to see that you've tested it out yourself and you've tried it, and you're
Oh,
not
that's a
just
good point.
telling people things to do.
Oh, that's good. I get that's why it's called personal finance. Like, so maybe that's the difference because my resources tend to be like when there's a job at Google or like a Korean like a job within my team or like a team that I'm around. Or I do a lot of stuff about business schools too, like business school scholarship, business schools deadline, like mission essay. What else? I also try to do just like career explainers, like okay, what does a CPA do? What does a investment banker do? Like what are the top 10 finance certifications? I feel like those things, just explainer type of things tend to, for me at least, tend to get the most engagement. Oh, I did one recently about like having an executive coach talking about executive coaching. I've been doing this for 6 months with the guy now. We kind of do it as like a 6 month thing. So we did the first 6 months and like, okay, how's this going? You want this for another 6 months? I'm like, let me reflect on this. But I mean, I'm doing it for the next 6 months. But in doing that reflection, I'm like, that's actually interesting. I imagine there may be some people who are thinking, like, is this kind of thing even applicable to me? Because I am not an executive, I'm not a VP or anything like that. But I think it could still be helpful. So I shared my experience doing executive coaching with them. It was good. I enjoyed writing. But I'm just saying, but I know these type of things for me, don't tend to get as much engagement as some of the other ones. So let's make this a little practical. You mentioned some of the things that you do. You have your podcast. You mentioned you put a lot of time learning about investing and such. So for you, like, if we're to put them in buckets, like, what are those actual things that you do where if, something were to, God forbid, something were to happen to your Microsoft job, you can lean to, or at least can help you bridge the gap into the next thing?
Yeah, I think first and foremost is having a good financial runway. That means reducing my spending to mostly just the core and important things and putting money aside, right? 6 to 12 months of expenses. For me, I put away 6 to 12 months of my income as much as I can.
Oh, of income, not expenses. Of
Of income,
income.
as
Of
much as
gross income or net income? A net after taxes. I said gross income, taxes.
yes, after taxes.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay, okay.
yeah. It's obviously over a period of time that I've been trying to
Yeah,
build
yeah.
to that point, right? No matter what happens, I know that at least I have, if it's 3 months, 6 months, 12 months of income saved up. But I think that would be the very first thing, is just having enough money for the inevitable. It could happen at any time, right? And then the second thing I'm doing is learning about AI and staying up to date with the trends and what's changing. Because I mean, I know sometimes it can be very overwhelming. There's new models coming up every day. But I think one of the things that you can't take away is the ability to sell yourself, right? The ability to be marketable. And that's something that I personally have done is, like I mentioned at work, like where it's now part of our performance review, like your ability to use AI to bring down time spent on tasks, right? So using AI to create efficiencies. So I'm making sure that I'm taking advantage of all the tools we have available at work, learning so that I can also upskill myself and make myself sellable for the next role, right? So that's the second thing I'm doing is learning, and staying on top of the tools, even using the tools personally, right? Like Claude, Chat GPT, Gemini, I kind of shuffle between all three of them because they're amazing tools, right? And it's learning how to make sure that I know it enough that I can be dangerous, right? And then, yeah, I think those are, and then of course, the final thing is because I often talk about being the CFO of your life. And I think oftentimes we focus on, as a finance person, that there's a controller and then there's a CFO, right? Oftentimes when we talk about personal finance, we focus more on the controller tasks, right? Like making sure that you're budgeting and keeping, your expenses low. But the CFO looks at the top line. So that's the final thing that I do is how can I increase my income, right? How can I have a buffer for my income, right? And that's why I'm doing the things that I do, right? Podcasting, posting content on Instagram, putting out the information out there for free. So putting content out there really, again, like I mentioned with the personal brand, establishing myself as the personal finance and the go-to person, that helps me increase my top line, which is getting more income in, right? So those are the three things I'm doing. Really not seeing AI as the enemy, right? Because I think another side hustle actually just came to mind that might be really key is a lot of the companies right now that are implementing AI are, I would say, larger corporations or mid-sized businesses, right? But we have the smaller companies, the mom and pop shops that probably don't have the ability to hire engineers or AI engineers or the top guys to come help them implement it, right? So that could be a side hustles where you're going into these small, medium-sized businesses, more smaller businesses, and helping them with, for example, like their finance transformation, right? How are they able to use AI to create efficiencies in their financial reporting, right? A lot of the smaller businesses can't really afford major, like the KPMGs of the world, right? But learning it yourself, learning about how to use those, learning about the tools available for financial, like we take finance transformation, for example, right? Learning about the tools available for finance transformation and figuring out how you can leverage that skill that you've learned to help small businesses with their own finance transformation. That's an idea, right? So it's upskilling and using AI, seeing AI as your friend and not the enemy, and actually using it to then those skills as well as generate income, I think is another side hustle I just thought about, right? So there's so many opportunities out there. Again, I think it's one thing because there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of narratives out there. AI is going to take over all the
Yep.
jobs and all, but I think the key thing right now is learning, right? Because the people that would be left behind, in my opinion, are the people who just stay on the sidelines and not use the tools at all because they're scared it's going to take over their jobs, right? But the people who would come out at least fighting, and stronger are people who are on top of it, right? Learning the tools, staying on top of the news, staying on top of the trend, and then figuring out how you can actually use the tool to make money and use it as your side hustle to build your side hustle and your side income.
So, two questions. First, for people who are listening who have no idea what financial transformation is, can you just explain a little bit? When you say financial, help a small business with their financial transformation, what do you mean with that?
Yeah, I'll say, for example, some businesses do a lot of manual accounting and reporting, right? Accounting sometimes can be very manual. It's a lot of like Excel or sometimes not even Excel, maybe just like.
Actual receipts, actually, like I have a notebook and write pen and paper.
So if finance transformation could be that, right? Going into these small businesses and seeing, you have to first start with the process, right? Understand their end-to-end financial reporting process, right? Look at where there are gaps, where there's a lot of time wasted. Maybe they're still doing a lot of manual processes, right? So stepping in, understanding that process, and then saying, okay, now I see the end-to-end process. Where can we either digitize it? Because like we said, there's some companies that are still doing manual receipts. So the first step would be to digitize that, right? Maybe using QuickBooks or Xero, all these accounting tools. That might be the first step. But then I think ultimately finance transformation is going from looking at those end-to-end processes, seeing where things are not quite working or where things are breaking in their process, where time is spent or wasted in some areas, and then using AI tools. AI tools are available to create better efficiencies right? So I think that would be finance transformation just from a financial reporting standpoint. How can you use AI? At work recently, we were looking at how AI has obviously been embedded in Excel, right? It can actually help you with financial modeling and some of those crazy Excel files that you have, right? So that would be another option is, okay, maybe too much time is spent on reconciliation for X amount of period for close period, right? How can we bring your close period down from 5 business days to just 2 business days, leveraging AI, right? So those are some of the examples. Of course, there's so many other
Yeah.
transformations out there. There's operations, right? Like maybe someone is still answering calls and writing down appointments on a pen and paper, right? How do you digitize that? And then how do you use AI to create efficiencies? So I think those are some of the side hustles that people can actually think about, right?
And I think this could be broader, right? So obviously for us, we're finance, we're thinking about it from a finance standpoint. Right? Imagine, let's say you're a lawyer, you could sort of think about it's okay, it's like small businesses, like what tend to be their legal needs and how do they do that now? Is it very manual? How can what AI tools exist out there that can help streamline their tools and how can I help them
Absolutely.
do that?
So many.
Yeah, different professions. Just think about it, how, small businesses might not have that exposure that we do it being in big companies. How can we help?
Yeah, and they might not have the ability to hire like the top consultants to help, right? So
Yeah.
that's where you come in with your skills. And like I mentioned, like you can actually learn these skills with AI and then go help the small businesses.
Okay, so you just give me ideas. I should look at being a finance consultant, huh, on the side.
That's a side hustle.
Yeah. Obviously, like it's the consulting type of business is one. It's actually like your time, the time type or business. Like you actually have to go talk to the businesses. You can't say, ChatGPT, find 10 businesses for me and go help them do the thing. You have to actually go out there and go speak to the businesses if you want them to hire you, how you want them to get paid. As we wrap up here, what's one personal finance tool? Because I think ChatGPT has the integration. Is it Plaid? One of those fintech companies now where you can pull your bank information, your bank statements, and like your financial stuff from whatever bank into like ChatGPT to analyze it and stuff. Um, for you in the personal finance world, is there any new AI tool that can help people with the personal finance?
I personally use Monarch Money for
Oh, I use
my,
Mark Money as well.
but I also use Claude. So I use Monarch Money for really just doing like a backward looking, so me basically just figuring out how I spend and seeing what I
Yeah.
need to cut back on. And then I use Claude for more of the forward looking, right? So I saved XYZ, review my investment portfolio. Again, this is probably not the best, but I don't just take whatever Claude tells me and implement it, right? But I use it as sort of like my thinking partner, right? So I'm like, okay, this is the gains for this month, scan market trends, right? Scan market trend and scan the current economic state, right, of the country, and give me a report that shows sort of the market trends and where I should be looking at or how I should be rebalancing my portfolio. So those are kind of things that I do with Claude. So it's more of a strategy type analysis. But for as far as like my budgeting, my planning, and all of that, I use Monarch Money.
Monarch, talking about side hustles. Monarch Money, if you're hearing, you should come be a sponsor of the show. They've tried to embed some AI tools. I remember because they have like a tab for your investments, like your cash and different things. And I
Yeah.
know if you tap on the AI tool, one of the auto suggested queries could be like, where did my money go this month? They have some autos that you can pick from, like a prompt or suggested
Yeah.
prompt you can pick from. I've tried it a couple of times. It's worked sometimes. Other times it's just like stuck. It's really not helpful. But I think it's still probably working to the king.
Yeah,
Anyways,
they're still working on it, but because I tried it as well because I usually do like my annual review, and I tried it, and I'm like, that's not quite right.
all
Like,
right. Before we wrap up, the final question I ask everyone on the show: what is the best advice you've ever received?
I would say the best advice I ever received is treating not only my finances but my life in general as a company.
Mm.
That sounds a little bit
I feel
much,
like we
but
need to unpack. I feel like we need to unpack that. But just give us a little the high level of what that actually means.
yeah, and in a nutshell, it's really just taking the driver's seat of your life instead of just allowing life to happen. Take the driver's seat and stand that I have control or to the best of my ability that some of the outcomes of my life. Of course, there's certain things that you can't control, but to the best of my ability, figure out, what does 10 years from now look like? What does 5 years from now look like for my career, for my personal finances, and really just taking that driver's seat, planning ahead of time. So I think it was, I would say that, that's how companies operate, right? They don't just wake up
Yeah.
every day and things just happen, right? There's a lot of planning, there's a lot of forward looking, a lot of forecasting. And again, for your personal life, because there's some luck as well, but at least what you can control, just take that driver's seat, and really listen to your intuition, because sometimes some things are being said and your spirit kind of knows what you should do next. I think that would be the
Yeah.
thing, the
So
best.
you get to be the CEO of your life and the driver of your life, and do not let other people sidetrack you. Anyways, this has been a very practical conversation. I really appreciate the time, Jennifer. And to everyone listening, thank you for spending your time with us today. If you've not done so already, please subscribe to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen. I'm Ehis. Until next time, stay unmuted.